I'm actually going to wait till that clock gets to 7 o'clock, even though that clock's slow. It's already a special. Jason. Good evening. This is August 9th, 2022. This is actually a special meeting of the Hendersonville Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We welcome everybody who's here and everybody who's watching us from far away. We're going to begin our meeting as we typically do. That's with a prayer and a pledge. I've asked Alderman Eddie Robertson to provide us an opening prayer, and then I'll lead us in the pledge. Alderman Robertson.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, how great thou art. We praise your name, dear Lord, and we look to you for guidance tonight in our deliberations. Give us wisdom, give us compassion, give us understanding in all that we think, say, and do. Dear Lord, we are so grateful tonight, especially Saturday night as the fire bells rang across our county and our brave firemen responded to the fire in Gallatin at the new courthouse. We thank you, dear Lord, for protecting them as they were protecting us. We thank you for all of our first responders, the police officers, the firemen, the EMTs, dear Lord, that respond on a minute's notice and is always there to help and assist our citizens. Dear Lord, we pray that where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is error, let us bring truth. And where there is doubt, let us bring faith. And where there is despair, let us bring hope. Dear Lord, fill us all with courage, faith, and charity. We ask these things in Jesus' name, and we all said,
Amen. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are all in attendance tonight. I need to entertain a motion to accept our agenda.
So move.
We have a motion from Alderman Waters, a second from Alderman Cunningham. We cannot add to the agenda, we can remove, but I don't see anybody wishing to discuss. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as provided to you in your packet, please press the green button. Those opposed, please press the red one. Missing some, there we go. That passes unanimously. Thank you. We have no presentations. We have no public hearing. We have minutes provided in your packet from July 26, 2022. I have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Dixon to approve those minutes. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as they were provided to you in your packet, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. We have one abstention, and that is Alderman Petrelli. The rest passes 12-0. Next, we have citizen comments. We have nobody signed up for those. And then we have a consent agenda, but the only items we have in the consent agenda, really, when we get to the other agenda items, we have a group there, not really a consent agenda. And now we're on to ordinance and resolutions. And the first one is second and final reading of ordinance 2022-17. This is an ordinance establishing meeting for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in certain even-numbered years. Alderman Brown. We have a motion from Alderman Brown.
Second.
And a second from Alderman Cunningham. Any discussion on that? So, John, I've got a question for you. Since we're talking about meetings and meeting times, right now we have a meeting scheduled for typically our second meeting in August. That's the 23rd of August. Is now a good time to talk about whether or not we need to have that meeting, because this meeting sort of became in place of that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm looking for is some direction from y'all. If there's a need to meet August 23rd, conversations with Jesse and the staff, we don't have anything pressing, and we might have one or two items at all that would require us to have a meeting. And again, none of those pressing. Do y'all have any thoughts on that?
Cancel.
Alderman Brown.
Cancel.
You making a motion?
Yes, sir.
So do we make
Sure.
a motion? Okay. So Alderman Brown has made a motion that we cancel the meeting that's scheduled for August 23rd. It's a regular meeting, August 23rd, 2022. We have a second from Alderman Cunningham. Any discussion on that? So does that need to be is that essentially an amendment to this?
It could be, but let's not make it procedurally so strange. Let's just have a straight up vote on this as an item that
Okay.
relating to election day, meeting dates.
Okay, okay. So we've got a motion, a second to cancel our meeting, our second meeting in August, which will be August 23rd, 2022. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor of canceling our meeting, August 23rd, 2022, please signify by pressing your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. Oh, sorry, Jason. Hold on just a second. Now we're ready. Alderman Robertson.
What day is it that we're canceling?
It would be August 23rd, which is 2 Tuesdays from today. Okay. Jason, can we still vote? What do we need to do? We're missing somebody. Who are we missing? Oh, Alderman Robertson, we're missing your vote. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you all. So back to the ordinance in front of us, 2022-17. This is about meetings, even number of years specifically, in years when the first board meeting in November conflicts with election day. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving second and final reading ordinance 2022-17, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have second and final reading of ordinance 2022-19. This is an ordinance relative to term limits for members of the board of mayor and aldermen. Alderman Robertson.
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Robertson and a second from Alderman Hayes. Alderman Robertson.
I discussed this matter with Mr. Bradley, and just to make sure that we have every T crossed and every I dotted, I asked the city attorney if he would look to see if there are any cleanup language that needs to be acted upon tonight, and if permitted, I'd like for Mr. Bradley to give us a report on that.
Yes, in section 2 in your packet, section 1, the way it passed on first reading, that last sentence says in the term limit of 2 consecutive terms, that should have been 3 consecutive terms. I think that's just a typographical error, so we would make that change. There's a section 3 here that says the term limits are prospective in nature only. That section's not necessary. It's really superfluous because in the body of this ordinance, we tell how future term limits will apply and how term limits will apply to current members of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So I have deleted that section 3, renumbered the other sections accordingly, and then I've added a section at the request of the Election Commission or the Election Coordinator, and that's section 6. This way, we are actually voting on the language that's going to be on the ballot, on the referendum language. This way, we don't have to worry about that and whether the election commission is wording it properly. I ran this by Ms. Atchell today. She said it looked fine to her, and she was glad that we were making the decision on this so nobody else has to. What that says is, I'll just read it. It says, vote yes or no. The number of terms served by the mayor or by an alderman shall not exceed 3 consecutive 4-year terms, regardless of the ward designation for an alderman. Current alderman and the current mayor shall be limited to 2 additional consecutive terms. And that's what we voted on first reading, but this way it makes it clear what's going to be on the ballot. I think that anyone could understand that. So unless anybody has any questions, that's all I would have to say. I would just ask that you move to amend with the version that was at your table tonight, in front of your seat tonight. Each of you has a copy of the amended version.
So I move to amend with the language,
Okay.
city attorney.
We have a motion from Alderman Robertson and a second from Alderman Cunningham to amend. Let me make sure I understand this. So on page 14, go to section 1. In the last line of section 1, which says term limit of 2, we're going to change that to THREE, and in parentheses, the number 3. Then we're going to eliminate section 3 entirely. Renumber section 4 as section 3, renumber section 5 as section 4, renumber section 6 as section 5, and then add section 6 to what John just read us a few minutes ago. Section 6 is the actual text that voters will see on the ballot. They will not see what's in front of you. They will just see that text that John read there. Do I have that correct, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Correct.
Let's see. Let's go to Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 short years ago when I was campaigning term limits was one of my campaign promises. So if I may, I would like to be a sponsor of this ordinance.
Without objection, we're going to add you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Alderman Skidmore.
Yes, thank you very much. I know it really doesn't apply to the amendment, but along with Alderman Peterson, I myself would like to be added as a sponsor of this ordinance, as well as Alderwoman Phillips. And I think I might have jumped the gun, but Lori, if there's no objection, we'll just put you on there with us.
Okay, without objection, we're going to add Alderman Skidmore and Alderman Phillips. Without any other discussion, we need to vote on that amendment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. So, does anybody need any clarification? Does anybody have any questions on that amendment? Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you. Can you just reread the amendment one more time? Thanks.
Yeah, the only thing that really changes is we're deleting what was section 3 and what was passed on first reading, which talks about the term limits being prospective in nature only, because with the ordinance we're passing, we had the transitional language in it. All future aldermen and mayors will have a 3 consecutive term limit. Current aldermen and mayors have 2 additional consecutive terms in addition to one their own. That's the only language that was deleted. And then the new paragraph, which I just read, sections.
All those in favor, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes 12-0 with 1 abstention. Now we're on the main motion. Any discussion on the main motion? Let me make sure we have everybody here. Alderman Waters.
No, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. Alderman Collins.
I'm really happy that we have finally reached something that we can all feel good about. I just have a question for clarification. I want to make sure I'm communicating properly with people. The people who are up for re-election this November, that election would not count towards their 2 terms. Is that accurate?
No.
It would count towards
Yes.
their 2 terms? Okay.
That's made clear. There was one other small change. I'm glad you brought that out. And that is the last sentence in section 3. Current means those members of the board of mayor and aldermen serving on November 8th, 2022. That takes care of your question there. I thought of that as being an issue someone may have, so that's why we defined it. So it would be 2 additional terms after this one. Isn't that correct, Alderman Robertson? That's what you had in mind?
I had in mind that yes, that this next election would serve as one of those terms.
Yes.
Okay.
That the clock starts ticking.
I-
at the next election.
I appreciate that clarification because I thought it wouldn't, because it couldn't be retroactive and it wouldn't have been voted on at the referendum yet.
But what we're voting on is current.
It's-
If the
goes
voters
back.
pass that, it would apply to
Okay.
this current board.
All right. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Alderman Collins, thank you. Alderman Roberts, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you for everybody's help on this.
Alderman Robertson, Alderman Collins, thank you. All those in favor of ordinance 2022-19 on second reading as amended, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passed unanimously. Thank you all. Now we are on to first reading ordinance 2022-14. This is an ordinance amending the city's beer regulations to allow the sale of beer at golf entertainment centers. Alderman Edwards. Have a motion from Alderman Edwards.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay.
A second from Alderman Collins. Anybody wish to speak on it? Yeah. Go ahead, Alderman Edwards.
Okay, so what we've had to do, Mr. Kevin McGinn from Tap on the Green is here to talk tonight, and he's going to make a presentation in a minute. But he came to the city with a concept that did not fit, and he wanted a beer permit for it. And it did not fit into one of the categories of our ordinances. It didn't classify as a restaurant, a bowling alley, a golf course. So what we've had to do is create a new category for Tap on the Green to be able to have a beer permit. And so that's what this is, and I'm listed as a sponsor merely because I'm the beer board liaison. So I figured I would bring this before BOMA. I would like to tell the board that the beer board voted unanimously for this. I'm not a voting member of the beer board, but I thought I would bring that to your attention.
So I would like to yield my time to Mr. Kevin McGinn from Tap on the Green. He's going to give us a presentation on what his idea is for your beer for the golf course indoor golf course entertainment center. So without objection, we're going to suspend the rules to hear from this gentleman. Again, tell us your name and your connection to this item.
All right, thank you. I'm Kevin McGinn. I'm the prospective owner of Tap on the Green. It'd be a new concept here in Hendersonville. We have a short PowerPoint we want to share. Thank you for your time. Tap on the Green is basically a golf concept, as Alderman Edwards referred to. It's indoor launch bays, basically go inside, climate controlled, hitting golf balls on a carpet against a full wall screen. So 3 or 4 bays, basically. Think like Top Golf, except inside and climate controlled. You can rent a bay. You can eat your food, drink your beverages while you're playing golf. There's nothing like this in Hendersonville. They're popping up in middle markets around the country. Nashville has a couple that are membership only. This would be a public facility, so anybody can come in. 21 to enter. We'll go into some of the provisions around the governance around how you can purchase beer and so on. But at its core, it's a golf technology facility. So Beverage Control. So it's combined with the golf side is a self-pour beverage for beer and wine. Anything less than 8% alcohol by volume, where you can basically enter the facility, present your ID and your credit card. You are then authenticated in the system. The technology will track your usage at an ounce per ounce level. So there's no free dispensing. There's no off the record dispensing of alcohol. It's all tracked. You see your scan when you walk in. The initial approval is done by a hostess, and you're qualified for 32 ounces of beverage. If you want to get more, you have to come back and get reauthorized. So somebody's going to check you again to ensure you're not being overserved or getting too inebriated. So there's always somebody watching, and then of course the technology controls which you can self-pour. Some of the food offerings, we're going to keep it very simple. Pizza, flatbreads, sandwiches, those sort of things that are very easy, simple menu. Quick turnarounds, very technology driven. So, when somebody wants to get a beer, they can go get their own beverage. They want to get a food, they can order on a kiosk, and the food will be brought to them. So you're relying on technology to really provide the service delivery in the facility. And again, it matches up with what's around the country. These are some examples of what these golf bays would look like. They're highly finished. They use what's called TrackMan technology, which is a highly accurate indoor golf technology. You can see the finishes. We want to make this a very crisp, modern-looking facility. Again, about 3 or 4 golf bays is what we're going to target. That gives you a good feel for what the inside of the facility will look like. I think that might be the last slide. Oh yeah, here's some examples of what the technology looks like. Above each tap is a tablet. The tablet will provide information about what that beverage is. You will have an RFID band on a wrist that you'll tap, and then it allows you to dispense. And then it'll deactivate. Then you go back and retap again to get more. So that's an example of what the taps look like in one of these facilities. More examples of what a indoor golf bay looks like. It's right there. So that's essentially the concept.
Any questions, Russ? I don't have any questions for him. I do have a comment after, unless anybody has any questions for him. Let's see, Alderman Peterson, do you have a question?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Thank you. This is a unique concept. Who will check people's IDs when they come in to make sure that they're 21 and older?
Right. So the staff will constitute a manager, general manager, and then 3 or 4 trained ABC trained individuals. So these are people that, they're much like they would be, say, a bartender at a normal facility. They'll have a similar training, and they will basically, like I say, they'll take your driver's license and your credit card, and they'll scan you into the system. So they will validate that you are 21, and then the back of the driver's license actually gets scanned in. So the technology actually tracks you from that point forward, right? So essentially, a person has to check you in at a kiosk, much like something would look like this facility right here.
Do you take any other alternate forms of ID besides a driver's license?
Right now, the thought is a driver's license, a valid driver's license, what we would require. I mean, if I don't know enough to know whether if the technology will accept something else, we can look into that. But driver's license.
And what's the percentage of food served at an establishment like this?
Right. So we're targeting having the food will probably be about 30 to 40% of the revenue. We hope that the golf rentals, the bay rentals, and time, essentially, we're selling time on a golf bay. We hope that'll be about 30 to 40%, and the remaining, say 30%, however the math might work out to 100, would be on beverages, right? So beer and wine. And again, we're not looking at targeting hard alcohol, just basically under 8% alcohol by volume. So that's mostly beers and wines, nitro beer, those sort of things, nitro coffee, those things.
Okay, and one last question. You only have 3 or 4 bays. Is that not enough?
Well, it really depends on the size of the space we're looking at. We're looking at a few spaces. So depending on the footprint of the location, I would ideally would have 5. 5 is a good baseline for the fixed cost. In the modeling I've done, it's profitable at 3. It's quite good at 4 and 5. So there's really not much cost. Once the initial capital is spent to get the technology in place, each bay costs about $45,000 installed, right? From the flooring to the mats to the projectors, everything. So it's really upfront capital. The operating cost is really just the rent and the staff. So it's profitable at 3 bays, and it's up from there.
And you've got a space picked out at the streets, is that correct?
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 spots over at the streets we have been looking at. We've gone back for some second visits. So there's a couple that we have our eye on over there. It's a good location, right off, good egress right off the bypass. So yes.
Well, that area sure could use you. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Alderman Peterson, thank you. Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this going to be an over 21 facility? I mean, do you have to be 21 to enter the facility?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier 21. So to drink, obviously it's 21.
Right.
I probably need, so 18 to enter, right? So you can enter at 18, but 21 to drink. So, but an 18-year-old is going to have an ID. So anybody that comes in will scan, right? But only 21. The way the taps work is the taps will not turn on for somebody that's under 20, for somebody that has not been validated as under 21. So you might be in the facility, right? You can't drink, you can't pour in the facility.
Okay, my next question is, and it's controlled by an armband, is that what you said?
Yeah, so there's RFID band that goes on, and it's the way the band works. It can't be taken off. It basically has to be cut off. So they're one-time use bands. So when you put it on, it's essentially on, right? Then when you leave, it'll deactivate. In fact, when you leave the facility, it deactivates. All tabs close out at night, so you can't go home and give the band to somebody else and have somebody come back in the next day or anything like that. So it's very controlled via the technology.
Okay. So when they go with this band, because I've never been in a facility like this, pretty unique. But do they does one person with the band get a container to put the beer in or the wine in? I mean, how does that work?
Right. So typically, facilities will have the glasses will be near the tap. So you can fetch your own glass. Right. You're not given like one cup for the entire experience. So you basically fetch your own glass, and then your band will activate the tap. You fill your glass, and there'll be a bus tray or some sort of station where you can change out your glasses to a clean glass. That's the facilities I've been in many of these, and that's usually how they operate.
Okay, so who's going to be monitoring it? What if I'm a lot older than 21, but I have my friend with me that's 19. What's going to prevent me from getting 2 glasses and keeping one for myself and giving the other one to my friend? I
Right.
mean,
So
how's that going to be monitored?
right. So the staff, there's the staffing in the facility. There's, it's the general manager. Then there's, I'm thinking 3 or 4, what I call, caddies is the name I'm going to have for them. So they, they sort of monitor the site. They're patrol, they're sort of, servicing the areas, taking care of the food delivery, those sort of things. I'm going to be using different colored bands. So like a red band would be under 21. Right, so there's an immediate visual. So if somebody has say a beer, they're clear glasses. Somebody has a beer in their hand and they have a red band, that's a no-no, right? So black band would be the validated 21.
Okay, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here because what if they have a long sleeve shirt on? You can't even see a band,
Right, right.
So-
If you have somebody dead set on cheating the system, we have to ensure that there's some sort of visual cue to minimize that risk, right? So, the ideas that are best practice use different colored bands.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right, so
How many people are in the facility at one time? What's the capacity of the facility?
Right. So based on the footprint, I'm targeting 85. The fire capacity would be 85 or higher. So 85 to 100 is the ideal. But at any one time, I would guess 40, 50 people. That'd be, I guess, a good.
And there would be about 5 people that would be monitoring?
Yeah,
the
that's
people?
right. General manager and caddies for that ratio. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like a nice concept to me. But I wanted a 5th liquor store in Hendersonville too, but thank you.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. Alderman Phillips.
Actually, I do want to thank you for your desire to bring more variety to Hendersonville when it comes to recreation and entertainment. But my actual question that I queued up for was to ask the location, and it sounds like you're still trying to pinpoint that.
Yeah, there's a couple spots that are open over up in the streets, and the old children's place, and there was. So, we haven't looked. To be honest, I have not looked in the past month or so. It's been a little bit stalled because it's pending the. I didn't want to zone in on a spot only to have that close up 3 months later. So,
Right.
But that is really where we're targeting. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Alderman Phillips, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I quit drinking when I was 5 years old. What is the age limit now to buy whiskey, a beer? 21. You gotta be 21, really? Well, I appreciate my previous speaker. She asked you a lot of good questions. I see a lot of loopholes in it. You mentioned 30% on food.
Yeah, the target would be 30 to 40% of food.
Okay.
Ideally.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was 60% with our restaurants. Does that make a difference, Mayor?
I'm going to refer that one to our city attorney.
If he were going to be a restaurant, he wouldn't be here tonight. He's asking for a new category to be created that doesn't have the 60% food requirement, as we've done for some other facilities.
Do we have an ordinance on that? I've never seen one that would change his requirement to the restaurants. Where are you reading that at?
It doesn't, but for example, we allow golf courses to get beer permits now. There's no 60% food requirement on them. It's only for restaurants that we have the 50 or 60% requirement for food. If he met that if he were going to have over 50% of his sales in food, he would qualify as a restaurant. He would have already got his beer permit probably by now. So he has to have a new category created by this board. And then after this still doesn't give him a beer permit. This is only allowing this type facility to apply. He still would have to give his location, floor plan, all those sorts of things to the beer board before a permit would be issued. They would have to vote to give the beer permit eventually. If that answers your question, I hope.
No, but that's okay. So if your food increases to 50%, it's the same?
With this category, there would be no food requirement.
Or
He
none
would
at
not have
all?
to sell any food. He's just saying he anticipates that that's what his food requirement would be.
I'm not concerned with what he's saying. I'm concerned about what is our requirements, what is the ordinance? And
There
you
would be
just
no
explained
food-
it to me, okay?
There would be no food requirement for this.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Waters, thank you. Alderman Edwards.
Alderman Waters, to answer your question, maybe this proposed amendment to the ordinance requires that the receipts from the sale of alcoholic beverages shall not exceed 40% of the establishment's gross receipts. That includes the sale of food and the golf tickets or whatever they call that to be able to play in the facility. Okay, I hope that answers. But I do need to make an amendment because it says in this ordinance, section 8-228.
Which page?
That's on page 16.
Okay. Go ahead.
It needs to say section 8-223.
Okay.
So I would make that motion to amend.
That doesn't even need to have an amendment. That's
No?
just a typographical error. This is
Okay.
first reading. You've announced it and everybody can change it on their version.
Okay, very well.
Thank you, Alderman Edwards. Alderman Edwards, anything else?
Nothing further.
Okay. Alderman Robertson.
Yes, thank you for being here and the helping us to understand your concept. I saw it on the chart, but I wanted to make sure that you say it for the record. So a person that goes in will get if they're 21 and desire, they will get a wristband for 32 ounces of beer.
Yes, the initial
beer.
Correct, sir. Yeah, the initial approval would be for 32 ounces. And it has
Yes.
to come back and be reauthorized for additional.
And how much wine will they be would they be authorized? It's not 32 ounces of wine.
No, it'd be something less. So the way the technology works, and it's hard to answer on the wine because the wine, there's differing levels of alcohol in the wine and frankly in the beer. So the idea is that we target 32 ounces of, say, beer, right?
Right.
And then there's a sort of a rate, I call it an algorithm, I guess, that will, it could be 18 ounces, it could be 12, it could vary based on the alcohol content. So we try to sort of market to 32 ounces of beer, which would be, say, 2 ounces of alcohol. Right. And then however that would work out. So there's you rely on the technology to set what those ounces are for the individual drinks. So in every instance, it could be, it could be 12 ounces, it could be 10 ounces, 8 ounces. It just varies on how strong that wine is.
Yeah, I think your presentation said 10 ounces of wine.
Yeah. It's
So
probably
is
in the
that
PowerPoint.
what you're saying, that will be the limit on the first tap for wine, 10 ounces?
Okay. Yeah. The first authorization would be approved for, say, 10 ounces of wine and 32 ounces of beer.
Okay. Mayor, if I would, I have a question for Timothy with planning.
Without objection, we're going to suspend our rules to hear from our Assistant Planning Director.
Good afternoon, Timothy.
Good afternoon.
You drew the short straw tonight, didn't you?
I'm happy to draw it.
So does this have to go to the Planning Commission?
No, sir. This is not an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Doesn't have anything to do with zoning classifications or uses. This is purely in relation to the ordinance that pertains to beer.
So the inside of the establishment, they don't have to get any approvals with planning.
They'll have to apply for a use occupancy permit,
Yes?
but the use that they're proposing is already permitted.
Now, if we approve this ordinance tonight, if they can't find a location at the streets of Indian Lake, they still have the authority, if we grant this, to put that location somewhere else. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, as long as it's allowed in the base zone.
Yeah, and you may not know, would that be allowed to put it, say, perhaps next to a school or a church, or are those restrictions in our beer ordinances that prevent that? Maybe the city attorney
Yeah,
should.
there is a restriction in the beer ordinance that would keep it from being side by side with the church.
Or school.
Or school.
Schools, okay. But if we approve this means that similar situated customers could use this ordinance to replicate this across the city as long as they fit our rules, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's a new category that would kind of open up, not Pandora's box, but would open up the opportunity for more of these companies to be opened.
Again, as long as they met the beer board's requirements.
Okay. Okay, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Collins.
I have one question for Mr. McGinn, which is, what would the hours be?
So right now I'm looking at hours of say 11 o'clock in the morning to say 10 o'clock at night. This won't be like a 2 a.m. facility. So, by 11 o'clock, closed out, cleaned up and out. So that's on for weekdays or for a Saturday. On a Sunday, it would be more limited, maybe open up at, say 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock or something.
Well, it was the close time I was concerned about because a lot of times bars are 3 a.m. so I just wanted to seek some clarification on that.
Yeah.
Of course, this ordinance doesn't address that. So, but that's okay. I did come into this meeting having some concerns about, it seemed like it would be really easy for people to drink between the age of 18 and 21, but I think you've really spoken to that. Seems the same as any restaurant would be if, people pass their drink and take a sip out of somebody else's drink, and we can't, that's a law enforcement issue, not a BOMA issue, I think. So my other questions are more for Mr. Bradley from a governance standpoint. My concern is that we're saying we don't allow bars except for this bar. And if that's, what are the long-term consequences of that? Like if somebody comes and says they have a batting cage concept or something of that nature, is this the best way to address this issue?
If you want this use, if you want this ability to sell beer at a facility like this is what you would have to do. In state law now, they've changed so much on the Alcohol Beverage Commission laws. You don't have to sell any food in Tennessee to have an ABC permit. You can have a straight out bar, and I think you probably know there's several of them on Broadway. And it didn't always be, it didn't used to be that way, but that's the way it is now. And that's a problem the beer board faces when someone's got an ABC permit that doesn't require any food to be sold, and we tell them they have to have at least 50% of their sales in food. What this ordinance does is says that his alcohol sales, whether it's wine, whatever, alcohol cannot exceed 40% of his gross receipts. So there is some limitation on it. So it could not possibly be just a bar if only 40% of the revenue was in alcohol.
And we will receive documentation on that. My understanding is like the second quarter only
Once
to
a
follow
year.
that up once a year. And if it doesn't, we revoke his ability to
They
sell
have the
alcohol.
ability to revoke it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Alderman Collins, thank you. Alderman Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot to ask, do you have any sales tax projections with your business?
So the modeling at 4 bays, right, a 4,000 square foot facility would accommodate 4 golf bays. The modeling there would show, I haven't driven to the sales tax number, but the top line revenue, right, would be somewhere around 1.3, 1.4 million, right? That's in total across the 3 revenue streams: golf rentals, food, and beverage. So, I would have to do it back of the napkin, right, to figure out what that. So I don't have the answer for you, but that's a top line is north of $1 million.
I guess, can anybody do that math in their head? Is our finance director here, 90,000?
We got to do is we've got to multiply that number by 1.25 and then cut that in half.
Our share.
Yeah, with that, I shouldn't say that. Just Robert, are you back there? Robert was here.
The sales tax would be on 9.25%. So that would be, and that includes state and local. That's not broken down, but roughly the city gets about half of that because some of it's local and some of it's state.
Oh,
So it
okay.
would, the
40 to
maximum,
50.
everybody all together would get maybe 95,000, like he said. And that would, so our share of that would probably be 30 or 40,000 based on his revenue projection of $1 million.
That's right.
So So sales of 1 point, what did you say, 1.3?
Yeah, 1.2, 1.3 million top line at 9, so it's 900.
What is, we want to know what the, I guess what the local portion is, and then we would cut that in half. It would serve between us and the county.
State 6%, so it's really very little.
50 to have some.
Give or take 13,500 would be just strictly the local portion, and then our share of the statewide portion. would
So
be-
Hendersonville 13.5, county 13.5
Right.
thousand, okay. Thank you, Robert. Where were we? Alderman Peterson?
That was it. I just wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. When I first went through this ordinance, I was concerned about establishing a precedent. And, you know, given this particular type of establishment, a right to do this and others not to. But I understand that we're, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor and City Attorney, but we have golf facilities, like outdoor golf facilities that are already,
Yes, the city has a golf course that sells beer.
that sells beer and it's not
And the bowling alley sells
based on
beer.
the 60%
That's correct. It's not, there's not a food
food thing.
requirement.
So,
It's a separate category other than
Yeah.
restaurants. The restaurants are the ones that have the percentage
yeah.
of food requirement.
So this doesn't concern me at all about establishing a precedent because we've already done that with other similar type of activities in our city.
Right.
So I'm going to definitely support this. So thank you.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. Any other board members wish to speak? Okay. All those in favor of first reading of ordinance 2022-14, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. Missing somebody. There we go. That passes 9-4 on first reading. Next, we are on to first reading of ordinance 2022-20. This is an ordinance appropriating funds for parks improvements. Alderman Brown.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second from Alderman Petrelli. Alderman Brown, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. We have $193,000 that we basically put back in the general fund that we had set aside for preservation. We repealed that about a month ago, and we had talked about possibly several different uses. And the Parks Board had a discussion along with, of course, Mr. Gillian and his department. And I think if you looked in your packet, I'm asking to support them in repairing and saving some of our assets in our shelters, et cetera, that need to be done in our park system. So you have several pictures there. I know Mr. Eckenroth has toured those. Dallas, I don't know if either one of you want to address the issues there, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So that's what that money would be used for. Athletic field lights over in Volunteer Park, we would light up half a athletic field that we have the other half lit up now. So we would have the entire field lit, which would be a good thing, I think. So.
Alderman Brown, anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I was hoping Andy would be here tonight because I have a lot of questions for him. Alderman Brown, could you answer the questions about how this came about and everything, or should?
Dallas.
I've got a lot of good questions. For me, they're good questions. They may not be good for you, but,
We've got our assistant park director here as well as Jesse.
pardon?
We've got our
These two
assistant
gentlemen.
parks director here, Dallas Long, as well as Jesse.
You got promoted?
Dallas, why don't you come on up?
It don't look like Andy to me. Okay,
Without objection, we're going to hear from Dallas if there's some questions that he can help with.
okay. This first question, who's gonna be talking? What's your name?
Dallas Long, Assistant Park Director.
Good, thank you. Is this estimate for volunteer park only?
The lights,
Is this ordinance for volunteer park only?
It's for it's for lights at Volunteer Park as well as the shelters at Sanders Ferry Park.
I realize that. I'm talking, okay.
Two parks.
How many, excuse me, how many estimates did the Parks Department get for this?
So we haven't bid the work yet. It's Saunders Ferry. We got one estimate. We will not use that estimate. For the shelters at Saunders Ferry, we will go out for a public bid. We will choose the most competitive bid. For the lights at Volunteer Park, we have a Sourcewell contract with Musco. So they've already went through the procurement process with the state, and we've gotten a bid from them to reuse half of the lights that are existing, provide 2 new poles and bases, and basically transfer the light heads that are on top of the existing poles to the other side.
Okay, let's concentrate on Volunteer Park only. I know about the Saunders Ferry, so my question would be in relation to Volunteer, okay? So their bid is $71,900 plus sales tax, is that right? Just for Volunteer?
Correct.
So that leaves us with $113,487 for Saunders Ferry Park. Is the Parks Department going to take care of the Saunders Ferry, or is that going to be another dog altogether? I mean, are they going to try to do the Saunders Ferry?
Yes.
They are. So we won't request bids for that part.
For Saunders Ferry, we will request bids for the shelters.
Pardon?
We will request bids for the shelters at Saunders Ferry.
So the Parks Department won't be doing all this at Saunders Ferry?
They will be overseeing it. They won't actually be installing the shingles.
Okay. Is it possible that we can secure another estimate on Volunteer Park?
Yes.
We can?
Yes.
Okay. Be back to you in just a minute. Mayor,
Yes.
as I read the non-liability clause, and I understand when it says customer, that means the city, right? I'm going to use the city's name instead of customer.
Where are you looking?
Let's look at the estimate from this company
Page 40.
on the non-liability.
Okay. Yes, we would be the customer on that.
So we'd be the customer, wouldn't we?
Would.
Okay. Allow me to read it if you don't mind.
Okay.
What's the name of that company? Musco
Yes, sir.
enters the property before they enter the property to set up its equipment under this agreement. City must notify them, I'm gonna say them, of any landscaping or surface errors that are to be avoided by them in setting up the equipment. Absent from that company, their negligence or willful misconduct, Musco is not at any time or to any extent liable, responsible, or in any way accountable for any loss, injury, death, or damage to persons or property from any cause that at any time may be suffered or sustained by the city or by any person on or about the property arising out of the entry or activity of the property. Did I read that right?
You did.
I know I did.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a problem with this, Mayor. I really do.
Okay.
Is there any way we can get a hold harmless or a non-waiver or something from this company to take this out?
So let me ask our city attorney a question. John, are we actually voting on page 49? We're really just voting on what the ordinance has.
We're just voting on using this money that was freed up by the repeal of that resolution having to do with, 1% out of each budget. You're just designating that money to be used for these parks projects. You're not voting on this contract with this particular contract.
Why is it in here, John? Why bring it to my attention to spend several days reading the thing if we're not going
Just as I understand it, I didn't put it in here, but as I understand, it's a proposal that the Parks Department must receive.
If
so it
it's
has
in
to be
there, that's
information.
part of the ordinance, right?
No, sir.
Jesse?
It's documentation to support the costs that are in the ordinance.
So if the board approves this, the money, the 71,000 that I mentioned will go to them, right?
It could. It
Does
wouldn't.
that have to come back to the board to?
There would have to be a contract in with them that I would approve and the mayor would sign off on before we had any business with them. And if there's any exculpatory language that says they're not responsible for their own acts of negligence, it will come out. Always does.
But we've got time to take a look at that.
That's not what we're voting on tonight. That's all we're trying to point out.
So I'm putting the wagon before the horse, right?
You're asking a legitimate question that we need to be aware of.
Pardon?
You're asking a reasonable question that we need to be aware of.
I'm disgusted. There's no use in me making a motion to defer this, is it? Because part of it is not in the ordinance, according to y'all. It's not in there. So I'm wasting my time by asking for defer this.
You're welcome to make that motion. We do have a second reading on it, and so maybe we get together between now and then. Any questions you might have for Jesse or John, and we work those out.
Make it, yeah, just make it on second reading. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm confused, but I wish they hadn't put that in there for me to read and get upset. Thank you, Mayor.
You're an ex-insurance guy. We understand that, Alderman Waters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have to, again, voice my disappointment that we repeal that original ordinance that we had put aside that money for green space for the future. And I will support this for the allocation to the parks, but very disappointed that this board elected to do something like that after we had such a ordeal with the Beatty property back about 4 or 5 years ago. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. We've got nobody else. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, that's Alderman Cunningham again. You said thank you, so I can turn off your light. So, sorry about that. Nobody else in the queue wishes to speak, so we are back on the main motion, and that is first reading of ordinance 2022-20, an ordinance appropriating funds for parks improvements. All those in favor, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. Alderman Peterson. That passes unanimously. Next, we're on Resolution 2022-37. This is a resolution authorizing the Parks Department to apply for a Blue Cross Blue Shield Healthy Place grant. Alderman Brown.
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Brown, a second from Alderman Petrelli. Alderman Brown, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This came from the Parks Department and through the Parks Board. I think, Dallas, you're still here. Probably need you to address some things in here. It's a grant. It's a $1 million grant that is not matching, will not cost the city anything. So I don't want to say it's free money, but it certainly is free on our side. And this grant is proposed to be used at Volunteer Park at Arrowhead, doing playground renovations and turfing our athletic field up there, which would certainly be enhancements. So, but if we could have Dallas address this a little bit more of the planning and what that looks like. So.
Go ahead, Dallas.
Sure. So yeah, we're looking to apply for a grant with Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's a non-matching grant, so they would cover all the costs. We're looking, as Alderman Brown mentioned, prepping Volunteer Park and also putting an all-inclusive playground at Volunteer Park. We're thinking that's roughly around $1 million project. Blue Cross Blue Shield, in addition to covering the cost of that, would also add in a maintenance fund towards the park. We're basically looking for your approval to apply for that grant. The deadline to apply is August 31st, and we would expect to hear back in February. if we're awarded this grant. And then really the only tied to the city would be that we would have to name the park the Blue Cross Healthy Place Park at Volunteer Park, so that we do have to include their name in the naming of the park. We've applied for this grant 3 other times and we're unsuccessful, but we're hoping this 4th time we'll do the trick.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I want to address in there that Dallas talked about, and to clarify more than anything else, when you say if we accept the grant and we do the enhancements there, we will have to name, we will not be renaming the park, but we will have to use Blue Cross Healthy Place at Volunteer Park. So there would be something there for that athletic field stating that, because Blue Cross wants a little bit for their $1 million. So we would not be renaming the park, and after discussion with our city attorney and doing some reading, and the mayor also agreed to this, I think a while ago, we were talking about it, that the naming committee, this was taken care of in that we're not naming it after somebody that's alive or dead or anything else. This is a grant that is funded, and we can do that as a board if we want to. I think that's all I need to address. But you got any questions for Dallas? Thank you.
Dallas, why don't you stick by nearby, please? Alderman Peterson. Thank you, Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Dallas, you said we've applied for this 3 times previously. Do we know why it was never funded?
No, I know one year we came extremely close, and they called Andy personally and told him that we were really close and thought we had a really good proposal, but we just weren't selected. This particular plan that we have is different than the other 3 we applied for in the past. The one that we almost got was for a miracle field at Veterans. We also applied for a couple at Heritage Park, which is Beatty Farm property. They didn't say why we weren't selected. They're basically trying to go across the state and have these parks in different areas of the state. I think the year we were almost selected was the year Murfreesboro received theirs. And I think they had a pretty good all-inclusive playground that they received from theirs.
And has that always been a stipulation for the grant to have the name associated with the park?
It is.
And exactly, you're wanting to build like a smaller version of Mary's Magical Place.
That's correct.
And a turf field. Which turf field? For the soccer?
The existing soccer field there to the right of the new inline hockey facility, we would turf that field.
So is that the one that we just passed to put new lights on?
That's correct. Yeah, we would look to put lights on the other side of that field.
Okay, so that won't, because currently it's grass.
Correct.
So converting that to turf won't affect the lighting that we just passed, correct?
It shouldn't. No, we would literally just turf the actual playing surface.
Okay. Well, I hate that we've bypassed the naming committee, but, $1 million is a lot of money. And I know that there's a short window to apply for this grant, so I certainly support it. Thank you.
Alderman Peterson, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me see if I can get my cart before the horse again. Alderman Peterson, that shows what the progress they've made already through the state, so I'll share that. Let's see. It says here on page 64, down to the 5th one. Let's seek community input on the project before personal submission. Have we done that? Are we going to do it, or what's the status on that?
Yeah, we would definitely do that. I think we have met that by doing the master plan that we just completed.
We have done it already?
Yeah, we just completed a master plan where we seek community input, and included in that is turf athletic fields.
Okay. At the bottom of the resolution, Mayor, subject to terms and conditions. What are the terms and conditions? Do you have those,
Let me get to that page.
sir?
Let me get to that page, 56. So, I'm gonna ask our city attorney to make sure I'm saying this correctly. It would be, with the agreement that we signed with them, I think the big term is probably the naming. And they probably give us a deadline to use that money, I would think as well.
That's a great cause. I really support that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Waters. Alderman Robertson.
So Dallas, I'm interested in talking about, you said they're going to make improvements to the playground and make it an all-inclusive playground.
That's correct.
So that means it will be similar to Mary's Magical Place?
It would be a smaller scale Mary's Magical Place. It wouldn't be quite as large of a
And
play
all
area.
of us know how popular Mary's Magical Place is, so this would give another access
It would.
for children that need a special playground. Also, if we're able to get the grant and we're able to turf the field, will that save the city money in maintenance and mowing grass and fertilizer and irrigation and water? And we don't have any idea how much that will save on a yearly basis, but it's a substantial savings from keeping that field up, isn't it?
It would, yes. Field painting as well. We paint now basically once or twice a week, especially during, this time of year. And then also, it would also cut down on rainouts and having to cancel activity.
So, with the other grant, that we're, I think, turfing at Drake's Creek Park, a soccer field, we will then have 2 soccer fields that are turfed,
That's correct.
which might help us get more tournaments or
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely doesn't hurt. The other thing that this would do, so the field at Volunteer Park, so that serves basically 3 different soccer programs, our flag football and tackle, lacrosse, and then we would also be able to put our special needs programs, Raptors Athletic League out there as well.
good. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Edwards.
Yeah, will there be a splash pad that is proposed to be installed?
No splash pad.
No, okay, I saw a
Not with
picture
this
of it and I got excited. I think
Yeah.
that was one of the most requested
Yeah.
items in the park survey a couple years ago, so, okay, maybe next time.
Yeah.
Alderman Edwards, thank you. Sorry for that disappointment. Any other discussion? All those in favor of resolution 2022-37, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes unanimously. Now we're going to vote on the other agenda items. These are several appointments. Items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to be voted on as a group. That's appointment of Mark Bergdorf to Arts Council, William Clifford to the Arts Council, Robbie Borgi to Beautiful Hendersonville, Ken Brinkley to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, Mike McCarroll reappointment to the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, and Paul Guthrie reappointment to the board to the Municipal Board of Zoning Appeals. I need a motion for those. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from, who is that? Thank you. Alderman Dixon. All those in favor of those appointments, please signify by hitting your green button. Those opposed, the red one. Jason, we do that too early? We have one abstention. That's Alderman Petrelli. Next, we're going on to reports. We have brief committee reports. For that passes. First one is General Committee, Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. We met tonight. We talked about the Blue Cross Blue Shield grant, which we just passed. We also addressed Resolution 2022-38, a resolution condemning hate groups and hate crimes within the Hendersonville community. That was brought to us by Alderman Hayes and Alderman Collins. There are several other aldermen that said they would like to sign on to that. That will be before you in 2 weeks. So I would tell you, if you want to be a sponsor, that particular resolution, then I would notify the executive department to add your name to that. The other thing I would like to give a brief report on would be beautiful Hendersonville, since the temporary liaisonship has now turned into a full-time liaisonship, which is fine. Those folks had their first official meeting August the 4th, and they're an aggressive group of people. They are wanting to do some things to beautify the city concerning pick up trash and organizing some things like that. They have worked on a new logo for beautiful Hendersonville. They will be having some signs made. So in the near future, they will be going to each ward, and I think they're still working on getting 1 or 2 more ward representatives where they can go and work with the aldermen in that particular ward. Somebody can nominate somebody for a beautiful yard, or beautiful home, or beautiful landscaping. And then I don't know exactly how they do it, but they'll place that sign out there and take a picture and so on and so forth. So I did a lot of brainstorming, got a lot of things they want to do. And so you'll hear more from them in the future. Thank you.
Chairman Brown, thank you. Chairman Petrelli, Public Safety.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank our Hendersonville Fire Department for responding to the courthouse fire in Gallatin this past weekend. Luckily, everybody was safe, and appreciate the teammanship with that. We are still trying to figure out dates for a ribbon cutting for Station 2 and then a groundbreaking for the next station. I know we discussed it at the last public safety meeting, but preferably if it could be at night so that folks who work can be there, that would be great. But if we could get with Chief Bush on that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Petrelli. Alderman Peterson, Planning Commission.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I sent everybody meeting highlights from our last meeting. And if anyone has any questions, I'd like to ask Timothy Whitten to step up to the podium and read those minutes. We had one that someone might have questions on. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Timothy.
So the Planning Commission met Tuesday, August the 2nd, and they approved the following final plat. Millstone Phase 11, Section 2. They denied the following site plan, Stadium Townhomes site plan. That was a requested text amendment. They approved the following preliminary plats, the Cove at Old Hickory and Williams subdivision preliminary plat. And then they approved Resolution 2022-07, Durham Farms Phase 1, Section 11, street acceptance.
Thank you, Timothy. Alderman Peterson, anything else?
No, that's it. If no one has any questions. Thank you, Timothy.
Alderman Peterson, thank you. Alderman Robertson, Capital Projects Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we had a meeting where we had a lot of new information given on the capital projects that we are watching with great anticipation. The first project that we discussed tonight was the light synchronization plan, Phase 1. As you recall, there are 2 phases. The first phase interconnects all of the traffic lights, about 30 of them in the city, and puts that control panel here at City Hall. That's the first step in having them completely synchronized. The state has accepted the bid that we approved. So the bid has been approved, and now we're just waiting for additional funding. Because of the delay, of course, the actual bid was more than we had budgeted. So we're having to go back to GNRC to get additional money. And thanks to the staff's ingenuity and diligence, they have found enough money for the 20% share of that project without going into the general fund. So we're making progress on light synchronization, a project that we have waited long and hard for, but I think it is moving forward. We also had a report on the new Fire Hall 7. And of course, the bid has been awarded, and there has been a pre-construction meeting, and the notice to proceed was issued on August the 1st. So as Chairman Petrelli mentioned, we should be having a groundbreaking very soon, I think, on that. one additional information that we learned tonight that was very good news is, as you know, the city received $5.9 million in ARPA funds. We received that a couple of years ago, and that helped us a great deal with some of the projects in moving forward. We have just learned that we have also been awarded $6 million in additional money for a stormwater grant. And the staff is working on developing a list of those projects that will be done under that federal funding. So that's really good news. That's going to help us move forward on a lot of projects and save a lot of the general fund. So with that, Mayor, that's my report.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. You need to give that report more often. Jesse, our COO. Good report. Yeah.
Thank you. I also want to echo some of your sentiments about the fire department. Mayor Clary received a phone call today from Mayor Paige Brown in Gallatin, and she was very thankful for the response of Hendersonville Fire Department for that fire over the weekend. So our fire department does an awesome job, and she just reached out to say thank you. So Chief Bush and fire crew, you guys do an excellent job. Thank you. And great update today, Chief Bush, with your newsletter. And then the only other item I have is that our purchasing policy requires us to make you aware of emergency purchases. We had a lightning strike out at Memorial Park that took a transformer out. So under an emergency purchase, we are going to use Elston Electric. The cost for that project is $6,560. They're going to replace a transformer, and so purchase and install a transformer. And again, that was for a lightning strike that disabled electrical service to Memorial Park. So I'm doing this as part of the requirement under our emergency purchasing policy to make the board aware of that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Jesse. You've got my report in your packet. I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion from Alderman Edwards, a second from Alderman Robertson. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one, but not quite yet. There we go. That passes unanimously.